next week we'll have a title. I'm doing it with my friend Jeff Sharples, who I grew up with, who played in the NHL for the Detroit Red Wings, and now he's just a hockey expert. And we're going to discuss once a week what's going on in the league, and maybe he will give you some tips to help your child become an NHL star. So it's just going to be fun. It's not going to be very important. It's not spitting chicklets. It's not 31 Thoughts. It's just two guys that love hockey. One played in the NHL, and the other one was in a movie that involved hockey and a chimpanzee. And they both grew up in Terrace, British Columbia. This week's episode I thought was good, but we had some problems with the internet, so the video was kind of crinkly and the audio was good. So you're just going to get it on audio. We're going to throw some pictures up of probably some just random things throughout. So hopefully you listen to it. Hopefully you like it. Throw me some opinions and some thoughts. Tell me what you'd like to talk about on a hockey podcast. Just having a good time. If you don't like it, please don't listen to it. I'm not here to make you listen to a hockey podcast if you don't like hockey. But if you want to put up with me talking to my friend Jeff about hockey, we appreciate it. So here it is, the introduction of the untitled podcast about hockey with Jeff Sharples and Ian Bagg. Roll the tape. So, what was your sense of the first week of the NHL? Back, not in bubble, COVID times. How did you feel?
I thought overall, it was pretty good. A little sloppy, which was to be expected. You got some of these that haven't played in over 300 days. A little sloppy. Special teams is something to keep an eye on.
That'll make me interrupt you right now. It makes me interrupt now because I think it's stupid for the NHL to not have preseason games, because I think not having preseason games really affects the beginning of the season. In a shortened season can knock somebody out of the playoffs.
Well, I think they're in a dash to get this in. So, something had to give, and the players are certainly not going to argue over it. They want one or two exhibition games. Maybe the guy's trying to make the team want one, but I think you're seeing is some exhibition game kind of hockey. They're going to play each other 8 to 10 times each, and I think they were for more fireworks in the first week. They won't have to wait long. I think they'll start to get in the next week here where these teams start to get sick of each other.
That brings me to another question. One of our favorite teams is the Vancouver Canucks, and I think it affects a lot with the times. You end up in Calgary 10 times, who you traded were lost 3 to 4 players in free agency to. Like, that must have panicked the managers when they see that they have to play Calgary and the strength that they took from the Vancouver Canucks. Do you think that affects them?
Well, one of the things that a lot of people are excited to see, and I've been watching, is the all-Canadian division. The problem is there's only 17 in that division. So, Vancouver's going to play Calgary and Edmonton 10 times. So the other night, Calgary, who now has their goalie from last Markstrom as one of their long-term defensemen in Canada, and also picked up Josh Levo. Yeah, it's going to create, those guys know each other, but they're going to create some animosity pretty quick.
Right.
Calgary got the jump on Vancouver. They played in Calgary, so now Vancouver's got to regroup.
Do you think there was too much respect shown from the Vancouver side in the first game? It felt like there was kind of a little buddies going on, right? Little tummy sticks.
Well, respect to each other. It reminds me of junior. I remember, we used to play sometimes 12, 14, 16 times, and it's all about, how close they are to Calgary and Edmonton and Vancouver, and they're trying to keep the trend down. So the games, between Calgary and Vancouver weren't what you're used to seeing. But I think you and I talked a little bit earlier, where we came on, is Vancouver's 1-3 as taped right now. There's got to be a little sense of, I don't know if it's a realization that we only got so many games, so we don't have 82 to figure this out. We have 56. And so right. I would expect that to drive with emotion and a little bit more, they say urgency, but I would say determining the next these two teams play.
I think, and I'm going to, this kind of spins off a little bit on this question. We'll come back because there's another team that I'd like to discuss about playing the times. But do you think when we go back to regular times, do they take some games out of the season to give it this kind of, desperation or whatever you want to call it?
I'd love to see the NHL play 72 to 6 games there. I think 82 is a stretch. But what we're seeing now is teams come into these cities for most of the back-to-back. And then, case right now, you've got Phoenix, Vegas, twice in Vegas, and then Vegas is going over to play Phoenix twice, to play each other 4 times in a row. I don't think Joe's really looking for that, but down and travel and get more out of the players and take, going to set it up where they're in for, say, a Thursday, Saturday, or, maybe a Friday night, Sunday afternoon kind of thing. But, that's key because the TV is going to want, in Canada, they're going to want the Leafs and the Canadians, if they're going to do that, to play on a Saturday night. They get them 4 times during the season, in a regular season, versus a Thursday and a Saturday. So I think TV is going to drive some of this, but if people want to see hockey and a little bit more rambunctious hockey, I think that'll build rivalries if they play back-to-back, sure.
Well, that is interesting you say that, because I'll bring up Detroit Columbus having big line brawl in their first game. How do you see that going along with after how many have to play this season? You think they've blown their load like the beginning of the league, or are they going to get just worse as they go along?
Well, the NHL is going to have a problem here, and that's the other 2 sides to every coin. So you get these new, some cases rivalries, some cases just a uniting of an old rivalry, but you're going to ask these guys to play each other 8 times.
Speaking of, there they go.
Game schedule. Is you're going to see stuff like, is that Pearl?
No,
but
she doesn't believe it. All right, that's the end of that round. We got down.
I don't want to hear that, sir.
She's I don't answer. I wanted to bring up. We're going to 2 now. We're going to go to question 2, and that is, I want you to give your final 4 picks. And I will give my final 4 picks, and then we'll discuss why each is wrong. So give your final 4 picks, right?
Well, you know what? And this is a tricky question, but here it goes. I'm going to take Washington, okay, and I'm going to take Tampa Bay, and I'm going to take Montreal, and I'm going to take Vegas. And we can add up all the answers after, but I'm pretty sure those guys are all in different divisions. And so, you know what? That's the pick is to meet in the semifinals is 4 teams. But I might be wrong. I might have to look at that.
No, you're being able to take it off the top of your head, because I've got it out in front of me, and I was going to go Vegas as well. Vegas. I'm not going to go Montreal. I'm going to go Calgary. I think Calgary's going to be in the end there. And I'm also Philadelphia, who I hate, but I'm going to go Philadelphia. And then I'm going to go Tampa again. Tampa ended up winning the whole thing again. I just think they're just too strong. Those are my picks, my 4 picks. Do you have anybody that might surprise you? That
who's out west?
Who's west? Well, I picked Vegas is the team out west. The only other team that I really see be Minnesota, maybe St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think Vegas is the superior.
You know what? And what comes down to my pick, minus the Washington pick, is goaltending. I think Vegas is goaltending. The duo of Fleur and Leonard is super strong. You already have seen the first 3 games. Their goaltending has been very good. I like and Allen in Montreal, and I really like what Montreal's done to the team. Obviously, Ovechkin in Tampa, who was outstanding, and so the question mark becomes in Washington. And my 2 picks there were Washington or the Islanders, but the Islanders lost half their dynamic duo. So, the loads fall on 2 guys to carry it. I just think Washington is built for long haul. Done some moves that are, I don't know if they're sneaky, but, if you get Zdeno Chara, I know he's 2 years old now, maybe 43, but for what they paid for him to get that kind of leadership and the toughness that he brings to your organization, which is something that's going to be needed.
What they for him doesn't doesn't really affect the in any way for what they paid for him. So I think your team, if you get that opportunity and you don't pick up a guy for that.
Yeah, well, if you look at what he did in Boston, the last, what was he there, 14 years, developed all those young defensemen that come in to play now, and he's those guys get going, and he's a foundation piece of Boston Bruins. And for some reason they couldn't figure it together, whatever the reason. So Washington's sitting there, they're sick of playing against him the last 14 years. They pick him up, and he can help stabilize in Washington. Washington's got, if they stay healthy, very high end.
And
they're
and really,
strong, and
for what they paid for him, I know all those guys that he's been playing for all those years could just kill him on a rip, and that would be worth it. It just like they just take him out, and leave, throw him off the back of the plane as they're taking something like that. Just that huge gun flying up, yeah. which is another question I have to ask, because both skipped over Boston. And I think the last 3 years we've done that. I don't think, and has been missed its window. Or is Boston still a viable contender, or just there to muck something up?
well, I think that, there's something about the Bruins. It's always kind of, interval 6 team. They've been there. They got it to Game 7 in St. Louis. They were right there to win the Cup, and then they were right there again. No, they struggled a little last year in the bubble, but they have good pieces. Not sure what's going to happen, with their goal situation, but you got Marchand, Bergeron, Pasternak. Those guys are, capable of scoring you big goals and playing in moments. You don't have a guy that's kind of been, the rudder of the share anymore in Chara. And I don't know, maybe McAvoy or Carlo or one of those other guys can take the helm, but that's why Boston, both of us. And I think, I thought of the Islanders got goalie. I thought they'd be right back. They lost one of their guys. I'm going to go with Washington for now, but second pick would be the Islanders.
I like Islanders too, even though they really aren't exciting to watch, but they get it done. I do like Boston because they are the big bad Bruins, which you excited. I just don't feel. I feel maybe top 6, maybe top 7 of the team. I don't feel they're final 4. And most people, why say top 8, you dork, but top 7, whatever. Let's move on. Let's move on to so the league trying to recoup some of their money that they're getting by advertising in the stadium and by putting logos on the helmet. What do you feel about that? I'll tell you what I feel about it. I didn't even notice it. First, I thought it was a team logo, and then I thought, well, you think the point of advertising is to make somebody do something. And I thought the struggle with the logos they put on the side of the helmets, it really didn't bug and grab you. So how did you feel about it?
Well, I kind of like it. And I tell you that what I do, I like it. And, the thing is, if you ever watch European hockey, there's advertising all over them, and it gets a little distant. They're almost like NASCAR drivers. But, where there's a patch here and a patch there. What I like is, if you're going to put advertising on and you want to, brand out there, and they're trying to find other revenue streams. If you look, let's just take, for example, I think it's the Canucks and the Oilers, Rogers on the side of their, you could tell, it's big letters, Rogers Cable or Rogers Sports. Vegas has Cat 1 on there, as you can see that. When I looked at, and they started a season with Anaheim got something on there too, but I couldn't get out on the camera. So my only thing is I mind it. But if you're going to advertise, then let's make sure.
If you're going to do it, you got to do it right.
And understand what you're doing.
Exactly. That was the point. When you see Donald's logo, it doesn't matter how small it is. You know what that logo is, and the NHL has to do that with the helmet. If you're on, you got to do it. Otherwise, it looks half thought through, I thought. Whereas, especially when the that I see on the side for me, they're one color, right? So it's not giving much. Oh, I think you got to let.
No, you know what? Because it's not overbearing, and it's not. It's like, hey, here it is. And if it's a way for them to recoup some revenue, and it's a way for the advertisers to fulfill what they want, I'm not opposed to it at all. And I think you're going to start to see more of it, especially as we come on the backside of the pandemic here. You're going to see advertising, and it's kind of something that could have been years ago, and now, because of the situation we found ourselves in, it's showing up now. So branding, advertising, you're right. And McDonald's, you put it any site on there, any would understand what that is. But these other companies, maybe not so much.
Did notice that they've put more advertising on the glass. I don't know if you've noticed that. They've got more advertising on the glass in some things. I enjoy that they've finally taken those huge pieces of metal that they're covering the seats and put advertising on that. I also think you do more fun things like that. You put bullseyes around on those big pieces of material, and the puck flies out and ends on the bullseye. Somebody can win something from whoever averaged that bullseye. I think you got to do things that make it fun, because your fans aren't there. So how do you get your fans that aren't there? That's the thing that I don't they looked at this year. Like, for a little bit more advertising, but how do you make the fans part of the game without being there? So,
well, you make a great point. And one of the other things is don't have netting behind the goals anymore. The puck is going to go out,
right.
It hasn't in the last few years since the netting's come up, and now it's going to go out. So you're right. That would be a way to interact with the fans, whether it's, I don't know, whoever kind of brand you want to bring up, or, it's, you get a free milkshake, or you get a free pizza, or whatever it is. You have somebody pulling for it, and and then obviously they're going to show the replay of bouncing. If it doesn't land in there, it all hit the bullseye, and then that company is going to get something back. That's another thing. Yeah.
If it was me, I'd have a giant face with my mouth open, and if it went into my mouth, they get free tickets, something like that. Just like, it's something stupid. You got to play. While they're doing this, they've got to try to keep everything to be able to go forward. It's like me doing all these podcasts. You got to do, it's stuff that you might not continue on as life comes back to normal. But how do you keep going forward? How do you keep going forward? If you're not paddling, you're going back. That's the big thing. You can't take a break. So
no, and the NHL isn't. Out of the four major sports, football doesn't need anybody in the stands to make sense. I don't believe baseball or basketball does either. So hockey is very dependent on outside revenue. Fans, they need the fans. So doing this is a great idea. I would just like to see if they're going to do. I see it in some of the buildings where you can't make out who's paying to cover those seats. And if I was part of those companies, like you said, they kind of rushed it this year. But they need to maybe if they're going to advertise and do stuff like that, just a little bit more visibility, not overbearing, but definitely
not overbearing fun. That's what it's got to be. Now look, we got more questions. Try to keep it around 20 minutes. I know it's our first podcast. We don't want to bother the people. We don't want to take it for time, sudden death. So we're just going to go a couple more questions. Where do you think? I know you'll be nice, but where do you think the best places to play are, and where do you think the worst places to play are? I have two different versions of this. I think the best can be the worst. I really do. I think the best place to play can cause all problems for a hockey player. So you think the best places to play are?
Well, I think that in New York, the range would be unbelievable playing in Apple, right? Chicago's a city to me, that strikes me. And of course, you might look at the warm weather climates, and LA has had a good run. They won some. Obviously, Vegas to me is a great place. So if I was to give you three right off the top, I would go. I think New York is just something with New York City that's just incredible. Montreal pops in line too, just because of how crazy it is. But I would go Chicago, and great city, and then I just land in Vegas, and that because they've been way beyond expectation. What's happening with the Knights in the building is crazy every night, and those are my three that would go with there.
I would agree with you on that. I would agree with you. Vegas would be a fantastic place to play, but I also think that it can be detrimental to a guy coming into the league. And that's these guys get into trouble by themselves. And I look, can you imagine, being a millionaire at top physical condition? You're at your peak for everything. You're 20 years old. You're just a big ball of testosterone running city, and you're in Vegas, and you're coming from soup Russia, or you're coming in the middle of nowhere Canada, and now you're seeing lights that you've never seen before, and probably girls that you've never before, and there's things thrown at you. There's things thrown at you that you would never get at you in the city. So sometimes I think the best place for these guys to play is like Winnipeg or Columbus, where it isn't as that, or someplace where they're number 3 on the depth chart as far as professional sports. So I don't know.
Hang on a second.
But at the same time, I can't imagine being 24 years old and living in Vegas and driving a Ferrari. My God. At the same time, it's got to be a thing for a kid to want to play in Canada, and a nightmare at the same time.
I think there's something that every
And
city in Canada is that makes it special to play up there. And you know, you could live, like, let's just say down in Florida.
there's a really weird
I'm
echo.
sure Tampa Bay, the players. So you've got Florida, where you could go anywhere probably in town and down in that area, you know, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and might not get recognized. And then Winnipeg, you know, you could come to a grocery store, fill your cart with gas or any of the Canadian markets, and people would know who you are. And so
Right.
it's special about playing up there, you know, versus, you know, being in the States where, you know, people might not have any idea who you are. And, you know, every night, special night when you play NHL in a Canadian city, and some U.S. cities, maybe not as, because, like you say, you're at least down the depth chart. And that's, I think, you know, the situation in Vegas so unique, maybe for, you know, call it a non-traditional market, whatever. But every night, it's crazy. It's like going to a prize fight.
Can you imagine being an experiment, though? The experiment to prove that professional sports can win in a city like Vegas, and then not only do you win, you destroy, you become the most popular ticket in town. So, you know, that's the whole thing, that whole thing. And Seattle's got you know, a fight and a half on there after Vegas, you know, but at the same time they'll be fine. Now let's wrap this week's up. And tell me, what are you looking forward to seeing in the next week? What's games? Who do you want to do better? Let's say that. Who want to do better, and who do you think's been over their head?
You know, I think I'd like to see more out of Vancouver too. You know, there's a lot of expectation there now. A really great start, obviously in Edmonton. And the reason for that is because you're the best player in the world, and you know, you want to make sure that you showcase that player in McDavid. Like to see those guys pick it up. You know, I don't think there's anybody really over their head. Like Toronto's off to a pretty good start. You know, Vancouver's off to a good start. You know, like teams. I think it's a little for that, but I don't think it's too early to about some of these teams. And obviously, you know, two that I brought up, Edmonton and Vancouver teams, so you'd look kind of try and get their games out this week because they don't want to fall any further behind.
I'm the same way. I feel all the Canadians, you don't want to see them fall behind, but they're all against each other. So it's a very weird little game that they're playing as far as standings. I would like to see Nashville be able to play harder this next upcoming week. I'm looking forward to seeing more out of Detroit. I'm watching right now. New York and Jersey are having a little bit of a scrum and punching each other. I'm looking to a little bit more at Lafreniere, see what he's doing. You know, big boy. I want to see him run around a little bit. And I've actually been enjoying Quinn Hughes, Jack Hughes on New Jersey. He's been fun to watch where he had been the last couple of years. Before to watching him some more. So, and I think my surprise so far had Jersey.
Yeah, and then you got some teams that, you know, what Dallas going to do, as we talked, and I haven't even played yet. There's a team that, you know, what you ask, what kind of week? Well, what kind of week's Dallas going to have? Because, you know, they lost a week in their schedule.
Right.
See what kind of week they have coming out. Well, the rest of these guys have kind of got their wet.
Right, and who's to say they come back from COVID as they were before? You never know. So it's a big thing for Dallas. How many players out? Well, started it off. The biggest step there is the first step, and even though some internet problems and some running around, we got it done. We haven't named the cast yet. So far, it's School District 88 coming to you so far. That's good because Jeff is from Terrace. We broke out of that city, that little Jeff in the nowhere, and look at us now doing a podcast on that. We'll be back next when we talk more hockey. Thanks, Jeff.
You bet. Take it easy.
Well, that was fun, wasn't it? I hope you learned lots about the NHL. And please send us your thoughts and any questions that you'd like to talk about hockey. Please send them. We'll be doing this once a week, most likely Monday, coming out Tuesday. So we're just going to go over the hockey during the week. And if you want to send questions during the week, go to Ian at ianbagg.com. Send me your questions, your thoughts, your comments. Let's discuss hockey. Let's don't be a puss, all right? Let's have some fun. By the way, I need to drink from the Stanley Cup again. That's all that need to be said. Suck it, motherfuckers. I drank from the Stanley Cup. Yeah.